Welcome back, MTG Joe here. Today we're going to be looking at a meta kind of analysis in a different way. We did this a couple months ago, and every so often I like to revisit it, and it's just exploring what are the most popular formats on MTG Arena in terms of volume of games played. Now we're going to be looking at it from a constructed standpoint. We're not going to be able to look at it from draft or from like sealed cube. But we will be looking at all the constructed formats and seeing how many players during the same duration of time are playing on MTG Arena. And we're going to be using Untapped GG. It's a companion tool that runs alongside your Arena client. Tracks your win rates, loss rates, all your game stats, collections, stuff like that. Free to use a whole bunch of this functionality, by the way. Link is in the video description. But all the users that are both on Arena and using Untapped, we can aggregate this and try to approximate and kind of see from the volume of folks playing in each format, which is the most popular. So I've broken it down by best of one formats, Brawl, and best of three, and we'll just kind of jump in and just see how many folks are playing each format, kind of get a feel of where the Arena user base is. We also do, if you're new to the channel, weekly meta breakdowns for each of these formats, highlighting the top decks. So you'll see, for example, on the screen, we have standard best of one. It'll have a whole bunch of win rates, stuff like that. I feature this weekly. If you do want to check that out, check out the playlist for the respective formats. Like I said, each format, each week, best of one, best of three, based on what data is available. So our parameters, we are looking at format from September 1st to September 18th, 18 days. This is from the release of Dominaria. So it's the refreshed, rotated standard. So we're not looking at stale meta, anything like that. And we're looking at all ranks, bronze to mythic. Some folks are just playing for fun. Some are, trying to compete for mythic. We don't have play queue data. It's only tracked win rate data that we're looking at. So jumping in, standard best of one is by and far the most popular format on MTG Arena. 950,000 games were played, almost 1 million games of standard best of one. So if we kind of jump into this is the most popular format. It's the cheapest in terms of cost to entry for newer players. The cards are recent. Most content is usually geared towards standard. If you are a newer player, you're not trying to accumulate back as many cards. So typically is one of the more popular formats, and it kind of shows in the numbers. If we compare this to both Explorer and Historic, so Explorer is kind of the Pioneer adjacent format. It's up to Return to Ravnica set, so about almost 10 years worth of sets at this point. Kind of wild to think about that, but it's really what's available on Arena to this point. So it's kind of a build-in format. So this is true to paper format, and we see 130,000. So, an eighth, seventh and eighth the volume of standard games. And we see this kind of same, it's actually really interesting. The Historic and Standard Historic and Explorer are the same amount of games played, 130,000 for each format. Historic is the widest format and probably the hardest to get into in terms of just accumulated wildcards, because some of it came in anthologies, some came in jumpstart products, so there's not packs you can buy to get the cards. It is a fun format depending on what you're playing. It's like a format where, for example, mono red runs free, and that makes me happy. There's reanimation strategies, there's modern cards like from Modern Horizons 2 that are injected. So we see that kind of in there. So 950, 130, 130. And then everyone's favorite punching bag, Alchemy, 20,000 games. So standard, 950,000. Alchemy, 20,000 games. So for all the folks hooting and hollering, Alchemy, they should stop focusing on it, stuff like that. The general consensus is people aren't really playing the format, seeing only 20,000 games played. Interesting, so we have Historic Brawl, which kind of sits as the EDH Commander adjacent format. In this same period of time, we have 270,000 games played. So we have about double, well, just a little bit more than double the volume of play compared to Historic and Explorer, and about a quarter of the play compared to Standard itself, Standard best of one. If we jump in and kind of look at the best of three formats, so keep in mind these are total matches. So a match can consist of 2 to 3 games played per. So you kind of want to factor that in just in terms of volume. So the matches, they usually take longer. A standard, if we look at, for example, the average time, 6 minutes, 6 minutes, 5 minutes, 6 minutes. So it's about 6 to 8 minutes a game, say, on average. if we look at best of 3, we still have this like 6.5, 6.5, but you have your 2-minute sideboarding. So you're probably looking maybe 15 to 25 minutes on average. So for speed, it's usually not as quick, but you're going to see about 200,000 to 300,000 games. So on average, in terms of volumes of games being played, it's about a third for best of 3 than it is for best of 1 for standard. For Explorer, we have 43,000, so 86 to 129,000, which gets us about that same mark actually, which is kind of interesting. So on average, the popularity between the two formats, best of 1 and best of 3, is fairly close, and that's probably because a lot of the RCQ in paper tournaments are Pioneer. A lot of the decks are fairly similar. Like you have your Rakdoses, you have your various collected company decks. You don't have some of the combo decks, but there's some adjacent cards that you can kind of test out in those formats. And then lastly, we have Historic. So we have 17,000, 34 to 51,000. So Historic best of 3 kind of falls on the wayside compared to Explorer and Standard. It's just not as popular, it seems. Overall, kind of the consensus is best of 1, just from a volume of game, speed, and just the platform itself seems to be more popular. I tried to pull up Alchemy best of 3 stats, and there's not enough data for the period. I have to go back to August, and that was because a lot of the format was forcing you for the qualifier weekends was Alchemy, so that's why people were playing it. But even then, we just don't have that volume. So I can't even show you stats for Alchemy best of 3. There'll be the folks that, the truest to the game. Best of 1 isn't Magic. I always kind of go with play the format you enjoy the most. Ultimately, Magic's a game. If you play for speed, if you play for certain archetypes that are viable in best of 1 versus not best of 3, ultimately for tournament play, yeah, best of 3 makes more sense. But if you're just queuing up on the ladder, you're just queuing up for fun, best of 1 scratches the itches for a lot of folks, and that's kind of representative in the stats. Let me know what you think of these numbers, if they kind of correlate to what you think the popularity of the formats are. Let me know what format you play the most, and which bucket you kind of fall into, if you're still a believer in Alchemy or not. And I'll do these probably like once a month or so, just to see where the health of formats are. Doing these at some consistency is actually interesting. Standard's pretty fresh right now, but come a month, if things kind of stale, if if black-based mid-range is still like the most popular kind of thing to do people kind of burn out like we've seen in past standards? So let me know what you think. If you're interested in individual deck lists, like I said, click the playlist. There'll be one for each format and for each format type, best of 1, best of 3. And you can get all those imported deck lists right into Arena and see what the top mythic kind of players are, or the top ranks are using, and what's winning the most at that stage. In any case, thanks for watching. Hope you have a great one. And if you do enjoy this content, greatly appreciate it if you can subscribe, drop a comment, and hit the like button. Thanks for watching. Have a great one. Stay safe out there.